So I never had any issues with Justin Credible. Always thought he was a decent enough wrestler. The few little interactions I had with him were all right. But as I've said recently, a lot of my Justin Credible videos were getting comments. And I realize it's because he's been ripping off fans and promoters and stuff again. So I thought for the first time, I'll tell you guys my experience with him, which I've mentioned here and there, but I've never put them all in a video. So the first time I was supposed to interview him, him and Buff Bagwell, actually, I was supposed to interview them both on a show all three of us were supposed to be part of in Messina, New York. I believe it was back in 2019. This was the days before online interviews where you would have to do interviews with people in person to to like record interviews because just the online interviews wasn't a thing. The show got canceled. I had already paid Justin the deposit. We were just like, we are going to do it further down the road, but he wanted the rest of the money, I guess. In between the time that the show was canceled and it actually happening, I ended up taking a shift with my regular job, thinking the show was canceled and the interview wasn't going to happen. And then he said, "Well, you know what? My wife and I'd already bought him a hotel too." So he's like, "My wife and I will come out and we can still do the interview." And at that time, I needed the content, so I arranged, since I had to work, that my ex-wife would go out there and interview him, and I would just write the questions. That way, we would still have the content. That she would just ask my questions, and he would get his pay because he really needed the money. And where he lived in Connecticut wasn't that far from Messina, New York, where the show was supposed to happen. And again, the hotel was paid, and we'd already given him the deposit. So we get down to they meet at the hotel, and I guess there was an issue. The hotel was prepaid, but he didn't want to put down his credit card. He showed up, by the way, with his wife. They both were under the influence of alcohol, and they had one of their kids with them. So my ex at the time, who was with her dad, who was recording it, was like, "This guy drove here intoxicated." And at the time, the kid was like a young teenager, I believe, at the time. So the wife didn't want to put down the credit card number, and I remember they had some argument about, "Oh, you can trust us," blah 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 blah. In the end, my ex just basically said, "Hey, we're not go. The room is paid for, but you're going to need to show some type of credit card to get in the room." So in the end, they ended up doing that. So the room was covered. They showed the credit card. So if the room was destroyed or they tried to steal something, which, as I'll say later, ended up happening, it wouldn't be under us to deal with. So here's the funny part. Again, they were hurting for money. That's why they drove all the way out here just to do the interview. As soon as they got paid, the wife went to have her nails done. As if, like, if you're completely flat broke, the first thing you're going to do is go get your nails done. So she leaves the kid in the hotel room with Justin to do the interview. She goes to get her nails, and they do the interview. He's clearly watery eye stuff. He's holding it decently, but he's under some type of influence during the interview. When it's over, the wife comes back. The wife has alcohol. My ex and her father leave to drive back to Ottawa, which was like a 2-hour drive from where they were doing that interview in Messina, New York. The next day, we get a call from the hotel saying that pillows and the ice bucket that obviously they brought alcohol back for their drive back to Connecticut. and put whatever alcohol thing they had in the ice bucket in the car, probably when they were driving. So they stole the ice bucket and they stole pillows. And we were insistent, hey, they actually did put their card down. So in the end, the hotel agreed with that and probably ended up charging them. So that was definitely the first weird thing about it. But I always felt bad for him. And again, the worst part about that is the intoxication driving with the kid. So the second thing is we were going to have a wrestling match that I was sponsoring in Texas, in Irving, Texas, when I was doing a collaboration agreement with SWE Fury. I believe this was 2021. It was literally about 3 years ago. 3 years ago, pretty much this or next week. The match happened almost exactly 3 years ago. So I remember we had him booked for that for a while. I had paid him the deposit. I paid him the deposit in December, and again, he was hurt. This was during the COVID times, and he was hurting for money. So I'd already paid him the deposit, and around Christmas, he called me and he told me he had a bad infection and he likely would not be able to do the show again. If there was maybe 5 or 6 weeks in between at this time that he called me, he would not be able to do the show unless he could get, like, I think it was $250 American PayPal to him so he could fight this infection. And he said, "Don't worry, you can take it off of the rest of the half of the money that you're going to pay me on the day of the show." So I sent him the money. Okay, so at this point, again, he's got the deposit for the match, and he has more money that I gave him out of goodwill to fight the infection. Then the day of the show comes, and this ended up being a crazy day. I was shocked actually that he came and made his flight and everything, because again, with the deduction of the $250, didn't have, and I had already paid him half. There wasn't that big of a payday for him to collect, and I'll give him credit for this. He flew from Connecticut to Dallas, which was a long flight. So for the first little while, he seemed all right. The day of the show, as the match got closer, it was clear he was probably on pills and alcohol and getting more screwed up. Closer it came to the match. And then I remember that he asked me, hey, he said, can you just pay me the other full half of the matches if you didn't pay me the 250, and I'll send you the 250 back another time because I really need money. And I'm like, I'll tell you what, Justin, just do a good job in the match. Because again, I'm a video maker. I'm all about good quality videos and good quality matches. At this time, I just wanted to have a good match. I'm the type of wrestler that just wants to have as good as a match as possible. Like, just have a good match. I'll give you the other half, and we can forget about the 250. And he's like, "Oh man, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Blah 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 blah. We're gonna have a great match." So again, I didn't care that he was messed up going into that match, because I'm from an older school generation and I wrestled in Puerto Rico and I'd been on the indies, where in a time where it's not uncommon to wrestle somebody drunk or on drugs, and sometimes it can actually make the match better. So anyways, we get in there, and at some point in the match, he just changes everything. That again, I wasn't even the booker. Kevin Sullivan was the booker of the company, so everything had to be agreed through Kevin Sullivan, who also knew Just Incredible. I was just sponsoring my own stuff in exchange for getting the footage for the Hannibal TV, and I also got the footage from the whole company as part of the deal. not just my matches. We had a footage exchange agreement, so it was a good deal for me in the end. But anyways, he just changes the match, changes the finish, leaves the ring, throws a temper tantrum in the back, and then at that time, Selena De Laurenta was managing me, and this story gets worse. Okay, Selena is managing me. We're in this room after talking about what the hell just happened. Like he completely met. Oh, by the way, if you watch the match, which I put the link in the description, he also started the match before it was supposed to start. So the cameras actually missed the first part of the match. It was just a really messed up match. So we're in there talking about it in the room. Then he comes into the room and he's like, "Man, this is going to be the greatest rematch ever. What a work I've put together. I've made it seem like everything went wrong and we have a big fight. We're going to come back and we're going to do this again and we're going to make so much money." And it's just like, man, you just showed you're not trustworthy whatsoever. Why would I want to wrestle you again? So again, I was pissed at this point, and I had no thoughts of ever wrestling him again. And he totally infuriated me because I was nice enough to like lend him more money than he even was going to make, and then not even ask for it back, and he still pulls something like this in the match. So that was the end of it for me and Justin. I never saw him again. But here's the funny story: he had to drive back with Kevin Sullivan. And by the way, we weren't the last match. There was other matches on the card after us. We may have been the third last match that night of the card. So he got a ride back with Kevin Sullivan and Andrew Anderson to his hotel because they were all staying at the same hotel. There was time between his match and the time they left. There was probably at least an hour because again, Kevin was one of the bookers. He asked to make sure everything was filmed because there was a television. They had a television show at this time. So, anyways, they go to leave. Justin bled in the match. He did not wipe any of the blood off of himself. And he's still in the same stinky, sweaty, bloody clothes that he just wrestled in. And he's apologizing to Kevin because, again, he's just pissed us all off by changing the match around. And he's like, Kevin, when we get back, I'll tell you what, I'm going to buy you dinner to make up for this. I'm going to order us all a pizza. So they go back to Kevin's hotel room, or they're all at the same hotel. And he's like, I'm going to order it from my room. Then I'm going to order two pizzas, and I'm going to bring one pizza up to you and Andrew. He tells Kevin this. So he goes into his room. Again, he's still covered in the blood. Didn't wipe off at all. I guess after about half an hour, Kevin and Andrew are talking in their room, and they're like, he didn't call, and I guess he wasn't answering when they're trying to call down to his room. So Andrew goes down, knocks on the door of Justin Credible. Credible opens the door. He still hasn't showered or anything. He's still covered in the blood, in the same clothes he'd wrestled in. He's like, "Oh man, I passed out. I forgot to order the pizza." So again, I mean, that was the end of it with them. I think he burnt his bridge with Kevin right there on multiple things, and I never talked to him again. Um, I believe he may have messaged me or something at some point after that, still trying to encourage me to make an angle out of it, which I had no interest in. But I've had personal experiences with people I know telling me that he personally ripped them off after that, or showed up completely intoxicated to events they were supposed to do. So again, my experience with Justin Credible was extremely insulting, that he would take advantage of my kindness. And keep in mind, I'd given him several shoot interview pays. There's probably 3 total interviews on this channel of Justin and I that he got payoffs for. It's like I've given him paydays. I've helped him out even after the thing with my ex where he tried to steal from the hotel room. I was still willing to give him a match because I felt bad for him. And I also thought he was a good wrestler. Like I thought overall for him being drunk, it wasn't that bad of a match, other than he changed what was supposed to happen in the match. So yeah, I mean, WWE former wrestlers like him that were under contract for a long time, they have free rehab. I mean, he should get it, but from what I was told by my ex, and it seems to be online too, I mean, his partner is just as messed up as he is as far as addiction issues. And even I've heard Sonny say this. Their wedding apparently was a gong show. Sonny, who's now in jail for killing somebody for addiction issues, said that their wedding was even a gong show because I guess everyone was so messed up. So I mean, they're toxic to each other, and I don't know how old the kids are now, but I feel worse for the kids. I mean, anyone that's going to drive intoxicated with kids in the car are scum, in my opinion.